How you doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and as you can see, we're back at it, breaking down the latest Mets updates to get into here, folks, because we have yet another big segment. Why, you ask, Wardy? That's because Carlos Mendoza just shared some really key information with the media over the past couple hours at Port St. Lucie, not only talking about the rotation, the bullpen, and those respective battles, but the second base position as well, as while Jeff McNeil has been a lock in that position in recent years, not necessarily the case as we enter this spring. Could Luis Acuna actually best between himself and McNeil for that position? That is at minimum a possibility, and we'll get into that along with Brett Beatty, his role for this spring training, Nick Madrigal, Ronny Mauricio, when is he going to get any reps out there, as well as Kodai Senga being one of the many starters having touchdown, like Shamanai and others. He spoke to the media, so we'll hear from him as well for what his 2025 expectations are, how he's been this past offseason, has he had a rehab at all, are we going to get a 5 or 6 man rotation, that and a plethora of other things to get into in Mets land right here, right now. So thank you guys so much for smashing like and subscribe on as your first time in. Help us get a 32,000 subscribers where we're doing a Mets jersey giveaway to one lucky subscriber once we hit that respective milestone. So thank you guys so much for helping us get there. And before we move forward in today's video, everybody, let's first hear a quick word from our sponsor that I'm so excited to break down, that being at Mando. Mando, the all-purpose, all-body deodorant, which I'm so excited to get into. Why, you might ask, Wardy? That's because this is a product that I've been using well before they even reached out and we've connected here to get a sponsorship deal done. Shout out to all you amazing Mets fans who helped make this possible, that we are reaching highs here on the platform, that we're getting deals with Mando. Love Mando, love their whole body deodorant. And if you guys don't know Mando, let me enlighten you folks, because they have a plethora of products that, mind you, are all clinically proven to block odor all day and control your body odor up to not 24, not 48, but yes, you guessed it, 72 hours. This has been a massive game changer from the time that I've used their product over this past year versus the previous deodorants that I've used. And mind you, this is not just for pits. This can be for behind your knees. This can be for, the areas that we're not going to talk about. Wherever you feel like you need deodorant, that is where Mando comes into play. And with their starter pack, which I have in my possession to a degree, folks, you have a lot of the other amazing products that they have, including their normal whole body deodorant Mando stick. We have their Mando wipes, which I absolutely love. Where were these back when I was in middle school and high school, especially, where I'm sweating bullets throughout the day just because I'm sitting there stressed doing classwork and stuff? These would have been awesome to have for my pits throughout the entire school day. I digress. We got the whole body deodorant as well, which is fantastic. We have the Mando body wash here, which is so good, and one of my favorites as well, the whole body deodorant, but this time in the liquid form here. Again, all the Mando products, I cannot say enough glowing things about them. Sponsor or not, I will continue to promote this brand, and for great reason, everybody. So now I'm calling on each and every one of you. If you guys want to get in on Mando, listen up to the following, folks, and please sign up today. How do you sign up? It's by controlling the body odor anywhere with @shop.mando and get $5 off your starter pack. Mind you, that's over 40% off with our amazing promo code. You guessed it, Wardy, W-A-R-D-Y, at shopmando.com. Shout out to Mando once more for being an awesome sponsor of the platform, and thank you, Mets fans, for making it happen. Alrighty, folks, to reel back in here, the final thing on Mando I'll say, and this doesn't just go for them, this goes for all sponsor reads. I understand that some of you guys aren't a fan of having to go through sponsor reads and content, and I get it in every single one of my videos in the comments down below. Guys, please just skip through it if it really bothers you. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to do the most minimal thing by skipping through. If you really can't handle the minute or two to just possibly help support the platform, so that way we make content every single day, but I digress. Alright, guys, now let's get into this, and let's start by talking about Kodai Senga, because as I mentioned, Kodai Senga did speak to the media today, and I would love to hear his remarks further, because we see him lawn tossing here again. He's looking good, and Kodai had an interesting 2024 in the sense that he barely played. When he did in the regular season was for 5 masterful innings where he struck out at least 8 against the Atlanta Braves, then went down with a calf injury, and then bam, that was it up until playoffs, where he was pretty much throwing meatballs early on there in his second start against the Dodgers, and then the rest is history from there. But Kodai is looking for a bounce back 2024, or should I say 2025 campaign, after having an injury riddled year this past year. And let's see what Kodai Senga's expectations are and the remarks that he shared with the media today, because I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing what he had to say. Hold on one second, everybody.
more on the Mets. The number of top Japanese players that have gone to the Dodgers, and do you want to get some more on the Mets?
日本人のトップ選手がドジャースへ多く行かれていることに関してありますかというのと、メッツに来てほしいですか？
メッツに来てほしいなと思いますし、でもあったかいっていうのは日本人にとってあれは強いんじゃないかなと思ってます。
Yeah, of course I would love to have some more on the Mets, but the weather, the climate's nice there, and I think that definitely plays a part.
ドームにしなきゃ。
We need to build a roof.
I love Kodai so much. Build a roof. You tell it straight to Steve. If a roof and another $1 billion or so is what it's going to take to reel in more players of Japanese descent, then okay. And that has to be the deal breaker because we're not going to be out west, and so be it. But all jokes aside, I love Kodai for that remark. And again, he's always in happy, bubbly spirits. You don't see Kodai bum too much unless, again, like when he gets rocked early against LA and on other teams. But here's his further thoughts on really what he's looking forward to most this season and how things have went for him this offseason.
What are you most looking forward to for this season?
楽しみ。いや、やっぱり健康で1年間投げることっていうのは僕の中で大切なので、それができればいいです。
I'm very happy as long as I'm healthy and being able to help out this team.
So he's happy as long as he's able to be healthy and be able to help out this team. And Kodai was asked if he has any concerns about his arm or shoulder, and he replied with the following.
不安はありますか？いや、もうしっかり投げる準備できると思いますし、ここからだんだん上げていくだけだと思うので、焦らずに怪我なくやるってことは僕の中ですごい大事なので、それだけ。
I'm not worried at all. I just need to ramp up slowly and get through spring training healthy and get through the year healthy.
So a key remark that Kodai made with the media today, along with just those, usual ones about looking forward to the season, yada, 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 is that he spent half of his season rehabbing. And when I say season, I meant to say off season. Half of the off season rehabbing, while the second half, most recently now, not so much rehabbing. So it's interesting how Kodai, who again had, various injuries this past season, bizarre and mechanic related and then not mechanic related as we look to the calf especially, but he was still rehabbing there in the offseason, which tells me all I need to know. Clearly the guy probably shouldn't have pitched at all in October, even though he did for us, and obviously we learned the hard way as to why we shouldn't have went down that route for a guy who missed like all the year with injury. But again, desperate times call for desperate measures, especially when you're going up against the big bad Dodgers. But Kodai is looking for hopefully an injury-free and very dominant filled 2025 campaign. And when Carlos Mendoza was asked if the Mets are going with a 5 or 6 man this year, he has pretty much officially stated that yes, the Mets will be going with the 6-man rotation, which is why you will see the Griffin Cannings, the Paul Blackburns, and the Tyler McGills kind of battle it out in that mix of the three when evaluating the rotation in particular. And when speaking on the rotation as well, he did make note that Jose Butto, for example, who was ramped up as a starter last spring training, no more. After Jose Butto had great success for the Mets as a reliever for them this past season, one being changed from a starter to a reliever throughout the course of the 162, usually throwing around tops 45, 50 pitches there after a couple innings. That is the exact role that Jose Butto will have for the Mets this year, and it's great because they will hopefully have to be less reliant on him and not have to defer to him as to be their true setup guy with a guy like AJ Minter in the fold, among others. And we're going to get into AJ Minter shortly because there were some key remarks that were shared out on him as well as a lot of other key players. But folks, now let's transition from talking about Kodai Senga, what I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in 2025. And my final question to each and every one of you guys when we talk about Kodai Senga is, what are your 2025 expectations? I want to see the predictions in the comments down below. How many innings is Kodai going to pitch this season, and what is his ERA going to be? Not his expected ERA, as much as I love the expected numbers. Just tell me baseline ERA and innings pitched in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think he's going to do in 2025? But guys, let's now get into probably why some of you guys at least clicked on this video, because it has everything to do with, Luis Angel Acuna. I am so pumped up to talk more here on Luis Angel Acuna, folks, because we did see when speaking to the media today, Carlos Mendoza didn't make it set in stone that Luis Angel Acuna that Jeff McNeil would be the starting second baseman. Now, he made it known that obviously McNeil has some leverage there, and McNeil is kind of the guy to beat in that position. But versus even previous media availabilities going back to just Amazing Day, when I was sitting there in the room with everyone else there, when asked what's the status of McNeil to be starting second baseman, at the time it was more of a clear-cut yes, Whereas now it's more talking about, well, McNeil actually has versatility. He can be utilized in the outfield, even though we don't really need him to be. We have 5-6 outfield options as is, including himself. But for Jeff, I really found that notable that not only was the utility aspect brought up when this discussion was had, but how Mendoza pretty much beat around the bush. He went entirely around it. When he talked about, specific battles in particular, he didn't emphasize like one or the, he didn't want to get into specifics. And I think the fact that he did not go the lengths of making it abundantly clear that Jeff McNeil is, going to be our second baseman is telling that obviously this is a position battle right now. And he also did make a note how Acuna may not only get reps at second base plenty this spring, but he will also get reps at third base. As you guys see from my tweet beside me here, he did mention how guys like Brett Beatty, who was ramping up more as a second baseman in the second half of 2024 in AAA and got some reps there because of that reason, he'll be getting more reps at second base this spring trading. Nick Madrigal, who is not a shortstop at all, can play all over the infield, but not a shortstop. Mets have no true backup shortstop option, but they're going to have both Acuna and Madrigal, barring changes, barring a late signing of Mr. Jose Iglesias to have that be a difference maker. So in the meantime, Madrigal will get some reps there, but what's notable to me is one, Acuna giving more third base reps makes things more flexible to have Vientos get a start every now and then at DH when maybe you don't want Marte to because Marte's bat just isn't enough for you in that matchup. And Winker, maybe he wouldn't because you're facing a left-handed starter. All the more reason to still have Vientos starting, but maybe give Acuna a start there at the third base position. But Acuna at second base especially, that one feels like more of a foregone conclusion. Feels like a reality, just a matter of when, right? Because if you bring back Jose Iglesias, which the Mets have not completely ran off, I think there's absolutely a world where it happens because the Mets approached Iglesias with a one-year contract offer this offseason, and he said no, and he's still seeking a one-year deal, and he would like to return from what I've heard in the industry, so it's coming down more that AAV than anything else, so hopefully they can get it done. But even if you bring in Iglesias or not, right, Acuna is a guy that feels like he has potentially some of the highest upside out of that second base position, all thanks to what he did for the Mets and what was a limited yet fantastic sample size for them after Lindor went down with injury at the shortstop position this past season. So to see Acuna, in which I was in attendance for his game in Philadelphia, where he ripped his first RBI and ripped his first single, was so electric to be part of. At least his first single. I don't know if I was there for the RBI too, but no less, Acuna is going to be battling out big time this spring training. And a lot of Mets fans are ecstatic at the thought process of him being not only on this opening day roster, but making an impact in the starting role. And guys, Jeff McNeil did have himself a north of a 900 OPS in the second half last year, injury aside. So he was definitely a more respectable player, batting closer to 300 than before, even though he was really abysmal in the first half. McNeil's the guy that feels like he's on the outside looking in. He's felt that way for a while. I'll be surprised if he's with the Mets for the entire season. I could see him traded at some point, but still, there's a role for him right now. He is a starting second baseman, barring changes, barring a Luis Angel Acuna balling out this spring and having a better spring, because McNeil's on record having said in an interview over the past week or two that he knows he needs an important spring training to get a roll going, because he had a slow spring training the past couple years, and that's led to a slow start, especially this past season, right? If he can get a hot start in spring training, that will hopefully lead to great early success in the year. And I think he also knows that, his job is on the line. Even with the Mets owing the amount of salary that they owe McNeil, into $30 million over the next couple of years still roughly, they have no problem having him ride the bench the way that Marte's going to have to ride the bench in a limited sample size. The Mets have let Marte know that they're trying to trade him so that way he does get an increased role elsewhere, because he's nothing more than a platoon DH bat for the Mets right now. That's the reality of it. Jeff McNeil right now, you don't need to worry about him as defensive upside much when looking at the corner outfields at the moment, given their depth right now. Then when looking at second base between Luis Angel Acuna, what he can provide, Brett Beatty, who I really do think still has a lot of upside for a team, whether that's the Mets or somewhere else. Ronny Mauricio, that we will get into shortly as well, guys. These are just all further reasons to say, hey, Luis Angel Acuna, this may very well be the time for him to shine and to crack not only a spot on this roster, but actually crack a starting spot to fluctuate, maybe based on matchups between himself and McNeil, and to really see who's going to best it, who will battle it out best up until one man has reigned more supreme than the other by the time we reach the first month or two into the season, everybody. But let's get into a little bit more here on some of the other guys like Jet Williams as well.
Acuna going to, and are Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna going to play the outfield?
Jet Williams is going to get some reps in center field. Acuna, we want to give him a look at third base as well. So don't be surprised if you see an infield alignment of Acuna at third Beatty at second, Madrigal at short in a game. So because we want to see those guys what they can do in certain days. So as I'm sit here, I'm probably gonna keep Acuna in the dirt. That doesn't mean we're taking outfield out of the equation. Maybe 3 weeks from now that changes. But Jet Williams definitely is gonna get some reps in center field.
So, yeah, Acuna is going to stay predominantly in the infield. Same thing with Brett Beatty. And the fact that Mendoza had a point of emphasis that neither will be getting outfield reps this spring is telling that they really do like their potential impact on the Mets this year, while also looking at, their P trade value too, to a certain degree, right? I mean, these guys are going to be battling out for roster spots right now, but if you bring in a guy like Iglesias, that makes one of the Beattys, the Acunas, etc., more expendable for a team that's in a win-now stage at the same time. And that's why if you go after still a Dylan Cease among other trade options via the starting pitching market right now, that makes plenty of sense to do so. Otherwise, you're going to have these guys battling out, and Beatty knows that he's looking for a big spring training. He needs to lift that damn baseball and lift it plenty. That's his way to crack the team, because the glove looked great last year, but the bat to ball skills was just few and far in between, unfortunately, in his 50-game sample size or so. Acuna was electric. I got nothing greater to say about Luis Angel Acuna, and that's why I'm really excited to see what he can do should the Mets not trade him. And I think Acuna did enough last year for a guy that wasn't even a top 10 prospect for the Mets, mind you, because he was having such an underwhelming minor league season. They want to certainly see more of him, but they want to make sure that what they got from him last year wasn't a fluke, and it can become more of a certainty. If that's the case, then Acuna is a great example of a prospect that used to be a top prospect, fell off the face of the earth a little bit in prospect rankings this past year because he was not even batting consistently 700 plus OPS there in the minor leagues, and then bam, before you know it, he gets the call by the Mets, and he makes the absolute most of it. Those are the kind of players that you want with this Mets team right away. Another guy who had an impact right away for this Mets team, going back to the 2023 season, is Ronny Mauricio. So what is Ronnie's role going to be in spring training, folks? Well, sadly, this is exactly what I've been alluding to, a further reality.
And what is Ronny Mauricio's status?
Yeah, he's going through his running progression still. You won't see him in games till, hopefully somewhere middle of March, to be honest with you. This is a guy that missed the whole year last year, as you all know, and he has some setbacks. And right now he's trending in the right direction, and we want to keep it that way. So he's taking ground balls. He's, taking BP outside. But as far as game goes, he's going to be, we won't expect Mauricio to be in games early in camp.
So, Mets fans, I know a lot of you guys who have clicked on this video love Luis Angel Acuna to a certain degree, the same way you love Ronny Mauricio. Young, exciting players, exciting prospects for this Mets team. But for Ronny, he's not going to be in a game for a month. Grasp that reality now, once you stomached it, and be like, okay, it is what it is. Understand it's fine. Ronny was always starting the year in AAA, and if he is going to crack the Mets roster at any point, he will need to prove that himself from the spring reps that he shows. He's still going to have multiple weeks of spring training for the Mets. Hopefully, 2+ weeks of getting game action in, and then he'll start the year in Syracuse, and then hopefully after a month or two in Syracuse, we'll get a real idea as to his impact on the Mets potentially as soon as this season yet again, the way that Acuna possibly impacted the Mets as much as he did this past year.
That lineup now, I'm going to assume Lindor is the leadoff hitter. Do you have it in your mind who's 2, 3, and 4 from there? I know Boone came out last year and said Soto, Judge 2 and 3, and stuck with it.
Yeah, I got to sit down and talk to Juan and talk to Pete and talk to, when Pete passes his physicals. With Vientos, Nemo. The good thing, John, is we got some really good options here, and whether you go Soto, second, third, Lindor, Pete, Vientos, you feel good about your chances, right? So, again, too early. I've been playing around, I'm not going to lie, I've been playing around what it's going to look like if we go.
Mendy has at least 10 different lineups chefed up right now, guaranteed. Can't tell me otherwise.
This way, what about if we go that way? But who we're facing, when you're talking about a guy like Soto, I don't know, but again, I got to have those conversations with them, let it come.
he's just, again, beating around the bush again. He knows, obviously, early inklings that he has. I'm sure it has Soto in that 2-hole. Big question has been Brandon Nimmo on and where you'd put him. Would you bet him behind Alonso? Would you bet him ahead of Alonso, where Nimmo did have some 2-hole success in the first half last year, and then Vientos was the one who really thrived in that spot, especially a lot of the second half to a degree at least. So a lot of interesting questions, and my question to you Mets fans is as follows. It's A, between McNeil, Beatty, and Acuna, who do you hope wins the second base job out of spring training, with McNeil being the leading favorite, but not a slam dunk guarantee the way it was in previous years? And this is excluding Iglesias up until he potentially returns. I still think he will. I'll stand by that, barring changes. And secondly, when you look at the lineup, what is your preferred Mets lineup for the 2025 season, barring that the Mets don't do anything drastic player acquisition-wise? I would bring in a guy that'll be starting right away for them. Let me know in the comments down below. I greatly appreciate it here. I love reading your comments every single day, guys. And thank you so much for the continued kind words, because you guys always go out your way to say some really nice things I never take for granted. I did mention Jose Budo earlier, which reminded me, however, of what's happening with Tyler McGill. As we mentioned, it's a 6-man rotation, right? So Griffin Canning, Paul Blackburn, Tyler McGill. Paul Blackburn's probably going to be a little bit behind, mainly because Paul is still coming back from the spinal fluid leak. So I'd imagine it's more of a Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill battle. In the case of Tyler McGill, he is ramping up as a starter. He's not beginning spring training as a reliever at all. So to any Mets fans that would like McGill as a reliever, not to say he can be for the Mets this year, but if that happens, it won't be directly out of camp. He'll be ramped up as a starter, competing for that 6-man rotation spot, and then they will go from there. In the case of both Canning and Blackburn, but not in the case of McGill, because of the amount of innings that they have pitched, they can elect to defer out of a minor league option and elect free agency. If my memory is not mistaken, don't quote me on that, but I believe that to be the case because of the innings that both of them have pitched so far and how long they've been in the league versus Tyler McGill and the amount of innings that he has pitched, everybody. Final key note on the bullpen front in particular, as of now, is when we look at AJ Minter. AJ was soft tossing earlier today. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. Should have some videos. There's AJ Minter soft tossing from earlier. And AJ, who's very excited to get the season going, looks like he's going to be starting things a little bit on delay for the Mets. And what I mean delay is coming back from that hip surgery is no joke. So while he would love to have a normal ramp up in spring and everything, he is not going to be actually getting, like full ramp up bullpen action up until the end of the month. So based on that, we're probably not going to see AJ Minter ready until, hopefully, fingers crossed, opening day. But there is a reality where maybe AJ Minter isn't on the Mets opening day roster, but he is within the first week and a half. I think that's a reality. So I'm just bracing myself now for the Mets fans overreacting to AJ Minter not cracking the bullpen out of camp, but that's just because he's still ramping up. Maybe he wants another week in Port St. Lucie and that be that. And then he goes to the Mets. But either way, AJ Minter should be locked and loaded, ready to go for the Mets, all things considered, within that first week of the season, barring changes. But guys, that is going to do it for our latest Big Mets update segment. I want to hear from you, especially on the Acuna front, to see Carlos Mendoza be kind of, not only as positive in that conversation on the position battles, but also in really how up in the air things are, even with McNeil still being the favored pick there for obvious reasons. With that contract and being the veteran here, it's hard to pick a guy with Acuna having like a week's plus worth of success versus McNeil, who has a greater track record, whether you like it or not. But it's telling that this is going to be a greater position battle than years past at second base. So we'll see how McNeil steps up to the plate, how Beatty does, how Acuna does, how Jet Williams does when he gets some reps in the center field and in the infield. But guys, that is going to do it for your guy Wardy. Thank you all so much again. If you enjoyed the Mets content, let us know your biggest takeaway in the comments down below. Smash a like and subscribe on your way out. And again, we are going to be giving away a Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber to whatever player you currently want on the roster, and that's all by subscribing to the platform and helping us get to 32,000 subscribers. From there, once we hit 32K, a week later, we'll be doing a live stream probably where we'll be giving away to one lucky subscriber in the live chat, commenting in the chat, that lucky jersey. So good luck, everybody. Thank you again for watching. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.